Census records feel like they should prove family relationships, but the earlier ones don't. I've been revisiting some of my past census mistakes. If you've ever been unsure about whether you've got the right people connected based on census records, then stick around, because I'm going to show you the exact shift in thinking that helped me fix my family tree. So the first example is an England to US example. So in the 1860 census in Illinois, we have George and James Firth listed as laborers in the household of John Eliot. And this is split across 2 pages, and that often happens, but it's always worth looking at pages either side just in case you see additional names. So in 1860, there's no relationship stated, and they definitely don't share the same surname. So there's very little to go on, other than they're both born in England, and same as John and most of his family. So the next step for me was to figure out where George and James came from in England. And that meant doing lots and lots of searches and eliminating possibilities, because these are really common names. So there were a couple plausible explanations. One is that they could be sons from John's first marriage, if he had one. I didn't find one. Also, Susan, who's in the household, later marries a George Firth, and so that adds another layer of confusion. I also knew that John Eliot's sister married a Firth back in England. So lots of overlapping possibilities, but none of them could be proved yet. So working backwards, I did a blanket search of George Firth with the birth date kind of 5 years either side of the one we have here. One of the possible ones was an agricultural laborer in 1851, but he wasn't living with anyone of the same surname as his. So I at that point, I couldn't say if it was definitely him. So this allowed me to link him back to a family in 1841 that also had a son called James, about the right age, and also a baptism did confirm this George as the son. And crucially, he is John Eliot's nephew, and that baptism also confirms something else, that George is the first cousin of his wife, Susan. Another researcher had previously eliminated this George because of that cousin relationship, thinking, well, that's not possible, but it turned out to be a mistake. I actually did end up ordering the death certificate to prove that this little boy in Wakefield was not our George. It's worth remembering what those early censuses were actually for. The earliest censuses are the least valuable to us. So in the US, we had heads of households from 1790. In the UK, we don't get names until 1841, but we got everybody. Relationships were added to the US Census in 1870 and in the UK in 1851. So that said, I still treat those labels with caution. So this is actually a really good example of why being present in a household doesn't equal a relationship, but the absence of an obvious label doesn't exclude it either. And I just think keeping an open mind until you can be certain is actually really, really important. If you've ever discovered someone that you assumed was a child or sibling and turned out to be something else, I would love to know in the comments. Let me know. So in conclusion, if a census-based relationship in your tree feels less solid than you first assumed, that's perfectly normal. You're not alone. I'm really sorry about the light. I just hope it's not bouncing off in that mirror behind me. Bye for now.